Hello and welcome to this video on Dynamic Cube Size Calculator. Now, as you are probably aware, Dynamic Cubes were released in version Cognos 10.2. Dynamic Cubes are an in-memory technology allowing fast interactive analysis over large volumes of data, or big data. Dynamic Cubes are an in-memory technology, and they sit within the dynamic query mode server, which resides on the dispatcher within the query service. Now, to get the fast interactive analysis, all the members and data can be loaded into memory, which gives it extremely fast response times. Now, for Cognos 10.2, there is a sizing guide which has about 17 pages of calculations in order for you to appropriately size your dynamic cube. These have slightly been modified for Cognos 10.2.1 and again have been modified even further for 10.2.1 Fixed Pack 1. So rather than having to size various cubes, Triangle have created a calculator to make it easy and simple to get the hardware requirements for your dynamic cube. Okay, so let's have a look at the dynamic cube size calculator. On the prompt page, we are asked to enter 4 values. Firstly, to select our Cognos version, so I'll select Cognos 10.2.1. It then asks me to enter the number of members in our largest dimension. So I'm going to enter 350,000. And number of members in our second largest dimension, I'm going to provide a value of 250,000. Then asks to enter the number of users. Now this is the number of named users that will be using your dynamic cube, so I'm going to enter 100. As soon as I click calculate, I'm going to be presented with the results which will define the hardware requirements for my dynamic cube. Okay, so let's talk through the results. So at the top section above the line, it basically just recaps the values we entered on the prompt page. So we've got the Cognos version. It also gives us a cube classification as small based on the number of named users that were entered, and the number of named users we entered on the first page was 100. It also gives us the total number of members in the 2 largest dimensions, which is 600,000. We then move on to the hard disk space requirement, and the hard disk space requirement for the dynamic cube is 1 GB. Now the hard disk space is used for the result set cache. So if a query is being run and then the report is rerun, rather than re-execute it against the source database, it will retrieve it from the result set cache, which is stored on disk. Gives you a minimum and recommended CPUs, and as we can see, they're both 4 in this instance. So 4 is the number of recommended CPU cores. The member cache size is 600 meg. Now this is an estimate. As soon as your dynamic cube is started, your members are loaded into memory, and this is an estimate of how much space the members will take within memory, so 600 meg. The aggregate cache size is 420 meg. This allows you to define your aggregate cache size within your cube properties. You have your data cache size, which allows you to define your data cache. The average query memory per user is 18 megabytes. Now this is just an average of what each user that's using your cube will consume. And the peak query memory is 180 meg, so at peak times what will be consumed. Finally, the final base JVM heap size is 1.3 gig. Now this is the total amount of RAM required for your dynamic cube to run efficiently on your dispatcher. The JVM heap member cache refresh support is for instances where there's multiple cubes on the same dispatcher and you're going to want to refresh that cube whilst another cube is running. So that is 1.9 gig. So rather than having to do all these calculations manually, this cube calculator does it for you. This cube calculator is completely free and available for download. All you need to do is email sales@triangleinformationmanagement.com to get your free copy. And within this, you'll have installation instructions, how to set it up, and there is a document that goes through all of these results with you so you understand what each of these values means. Thank you for watching our video on the dynamic cube size calculator. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, if you do want your free copy of the cube calculator, then email sales@triangleinformationmanagement.com to get your free copy.